The Philadelphia 76ers have the potential to get an absolute steal in the NBA draft this upcoming June. The two top projected picks, Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper, likely off the board when the Sixers are projected to pick. But there is a guard out of the University of Texas, so according to Ryan Hammer over on Twitter, an NBA draft guru, has the potential to be an absolute all-star, and that could be a steal for the Sixers, who are projected right now most likely to pick between 5 and 6. If they, as we know as well, if they fall out of that top 6, that pick will fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But if they're sitting there at pick number 5 or 6, there is a all-star potential guard, according to Ryan Hammer, that the Philadelphia 76ers could look to select and could be another franchise-changing player like Tyrese Maxey. We've seen over the past few years as well, Daryl Morey's affinity to draft these scoring guards. No matter the needs on the roster outside of that, he looks for the best player available on the board, best talent available. You can point to last year as well. Dalton Connect was probably arguably a better fit more of a need on that Sixers roster, and they opt for what the Sixers viewed as the better player in Jared McCain. And Jared McCain, when he was healthy, when he was on the floor, looked like a star in the making. Could the 76ers be in the same kind of category this year with the crowded backcourt already with Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and most likely Quentin Grimes coming back? Potentially, but Daryl Morey has shown he does favor to draft the best player on the board, and the best player on the board at number 4, 5, or 6 most likely has a chance to be freshman guard out of Texas, Trey Johnson, who Ryan Hammer is a huge fan of, and we're going to break down that pick today, potentially. Trey Johnson, here in Ryan Hammer's tweet, is 1,000% worth a top 5 pick in this year's NBA draft to me. One of the best pure scoring prospects I have ever seen/evaluated. Ridiculous offensive weapon that will thrive in the NBA and could be an all-star in 4 to 5 years. And that's absolutely lofty praise. When you look at an NBA draft, a good NBA draft, you get, 3 to 4 all-star high-level players. And this is regarded as a really high-level class. But if you don't get the number 1 pick, you're not getting Cooper Flagg. I think we can pretty much, 95% lock in that Dylan Harper will be number 2 overall, regardless of the team who is selecting there. From 3 to 10, I think it's really kind of pick your poison. I think Ace Bailey is going to go in that 3 to 4 range. But from there, there's the mix of guys, whether it's Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, Kalaman Malawach, Jace Richardson, Kasparas Yakichonis, Colin Mary Boyles, Igor Deming, guys that we've touched on a bunch on this channel already. It's got to pick your poison right there, and who you like best, who you think fits your team best. What is your team in need of at that moment? And that could dictate some of these picks and cause a guy who Ryan Hammer says, Trey Johnson, a potential all-star player right here, to slip down the board a little because, somebody needs a forward and they go with Ace Bailey. Someone needs just a pure kind of shooting guard, they go with Con Knipple. They don't need a dominant, ball-heavy guard in a guy like Trey Johnson, and that could make him fall potentially to that number 4, to that number 5, to that number 6 pick, and that could be an absolute steal if you're able to get an all-star right there kind of in that ballpark. So when you look at Trey Johnson, a star-studded freshman year at Texas, leads them to the NCAA tournament, put a lot of that team on his shoulders, a lot of the weight on his shoulders for the season. And as I said at the beginning, Daryl Morey doesn't really, I feel like, build through the draft in terms of drafting for need. He drafts best player available, and you look at some of his selections over the years, primarily Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, and he finds really good value in these guards as well. Obviously, the Sixers are picking much higher than they have in the past, but still, Trey Johnson and the ability to select him here and get an all-star potential guard at pick 4, 5, or 6, that has to kind of raise your eyebrows if you're a Sixers fan. So let's go into a little bit more about Trey Johnson and his game and what Ryan Hammer, who great follow over on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, make sure to go give Ryan, or if you don't follow him already, at Ryan Hammer 09, a follow, a great NBA draft guy for these next upcoming few weeks and month ahead. We have the NBA draft combine next week as well. But he says here, as a true 3-level scorer, as you will find, parking lot range, so he's able to shoot it from deep. Took 171 mid-range shots and a much better playmaker than he gets credit for. Guy who will be a 2 guard but can fill it in at the 1 as well. 19.9 points per game, 3.1 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 43% from the field, 40% from deep, and 87% from the free throw line on a 29% usage. And this was in the SEC. Keep that in mind as well. This was in the SEC this year, the best college basketball conference we maybe have ever seen. With the amount of teams that they sent to the tournament, I watched those games every single night in the SEC, and they were wars. Whether it was Texas and Alabama, Oklahoma and Arkansas, these games were battles each each and every night, and this is a guy that was putting up those numbers, putting up that production with that 29% usage rate as only a freshman. That's as eye-popping as it can get. And sure, he has some flaws as a prospect, but I think you can also tie it into, in the same regard, that this is a player that, as an 18-year-old, or as a freshman in the SEC, he had a lot on his shoulders, and for him to be able to go out there and still produce and do it pretty efficiently as well was an eye-popping season for sure, and something that you really want to kind of look home about. And I'll beat it home one more time, but Daryl Morey has shown us in the past he will draft the best player on the board. You might be in the comments saying you want Derek Queen. You might be in the comments saying you want Malawach or Colin Mary Boyle as a guy for the front court. But if there's a player that Daryl Morey feels like is an all-star potential player on the board, he's going to select him with that pick, regardless of fit. Jared McCain could be a piece that they look to move down the line. Tyrese Maxey, who knows? I think and I hope he's going to be here for the long term. But if there's a player that Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse and the rest of the front office feel and believe that has a better ceiling, a higher ceiling than some of these guards on the roster right now, they're going to draft him and give him the chance, give him the opportunity, because who knows the next time that the Sixers are going to be, picking in the top 6. Knock on wood that they are able to receive that pick. But it is looking like there's a high chance that they get it, a 60+% chance, and it most likely I think is going to be in that 4 to 6 range. If the lottery gods and the basketball gods are looking out for us, sure, they might be able to get into that 1 to 3, but they're most likely in that 4 to 6, and I think that puts them right in the ballpark for a guard, for a playmaker like Trey Johnson here. And to really kind of tie home Ryan Hammer's point and the thing that we're talking about with the Sixers potentially getting a major steal here would obviously be a high ceiling outcome, but I see a lot of similarities in Trey's game to Devin Booker. Insanely smooth score first, 2-guard, showed playmaking flashes early and developed that part of his game through the years. If you're able to get a guy like Devin Booker at this at this part of the draft, whether it's pick 4, 5, or 6, most likely, I think if the Sixers are in that kind of 1 to 3 range, it's most likely going to be one of the Rutgers guys with Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, or Cooper Flagg. But if they're in that 4, 5, 6 range and they have the pick of Trey Johnson, Jace Richardson, Kasparas Yakichonas, Derek Queen, and so on, that kind of mix there of prospects from about like 4 to 12 on most boards, and you're able to get a guy like Devin Booker here, Sixers fans have to be smiling ear to ear. And I know player comps aren't always, an exact science. It's kind of more so the game reminds me of him. Ryan Hammer's not here saying that this is going to be the next Devin Booker, but a guy that shows those flashes, and, you look at what Devin Booker did as a freshman in a kind of a limited role, impressive in that 1 year at Kentucky, and sure, he's developed into probably one of the 10 to 15 best players in the NBA. And if you have that opportunity to draft a guy like that, a talent like that, you just simply don't pass up on it, no matter what the circumstances are. You look at a perfect example you could see in the NBA right now with the Warriors drafting James Wiseman over Anthony Edwards. Imagine if they had drafted Anthony Edwards to pair alongside Steph Curry, and that's probably even more of a dynasty right now in the making. So I'm a firm believer, and you don't draft need over best talent available, especially when you're at this stage of the draft this high. Maybe if it's like a second round selection, or you're in kind of in that end of the lottery, middle of the first type range, where it's like, all right, these two players aren't that far off. We could definitely use more of a power forward than a shooting guard, a primarily scoring guard. That's where it kind of comes back to the conversation of, are you going to draft for need? Are you going to draft for fit? Or are you just going to take the best talent available? And if you do have a chance to get, a potential all-star player like Ryan Hammer is projecting, and a guy that follows, I know, college basketball in the NBA draft just as close, if not as close as anyone out there in the sports kind of media world, you don't blink twice at that opportunity. So Trey Johnson, a guy that is has been a bit of a riser, I think, in draft workouts. He's a name that I'm starting to hear a lot more and more buzz in these recent weeks, in these recent past few days even. And would it surprise me if he snuck into that top 3 mix? No, as well. So even if the Sixers are picking up there, I still think this is a pick that the Sixers could potentially look at on the board. But if you're able to get a guy with an all-star ceiling and all-star potential and that 4 to 6 range, you have to take that opportunity. So look for the Sixers to be heavily involved with Trey Johnson, especially leading up to the draft, if they're able to land this projected pick between 1 and 6 and it doesn't fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's a guy that the Sixers will surely bring in and surely talk to and evaluate very closely. But Trey Johnson out of Texas, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know a ton of you are all in on a big man, but I really think this is a situation where you draft best player available, because you don't know the next time you're going to be up here. But as always, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe, and we'll be talking to you next time here on Sixers Digest.